Hello everyone, this is Pras and welcome to my team selection video. As we've mentioned in the past, we will be doing this, each of Zoff, LR and myself will be doing one team selection video every single week, and we'll talk about our journey as we proceed through the season. Hopefully it's a good one. Whoever listened to me on Wednesday, which is yesterday, I talked about a Wildcard 4. And I was quite adamant that we're picking a lot of short-term picks in our wildcard, so a lot of things lead to an early wildcard. Nothing has changed in that regard. I think a few things that have developed since. Number one, my favorite, and this has consistently been the case, where we had a gem, we had a gift of 5 million from the FPL gods from Man City, Oscar Bob. That was taken away from us because he's now injured for months. So wish him the best of recovery. But it does derail the wildcard for a little bit because he was the glue, that really cheap enabler that you could have potentially played even all 3 weeks, but 2 weeks. And when you have a 5 million guy who you can play with huge upside, which nobody else can get, by the way, nobody on wildcard 6 could go there because you know that it's a dead asset after 3 weeks, it changes a little bit. Then you have the news on on who will Man City replace him with. So there's some Eze rumors that are linked. There's Brighton who keep buying players. So, they've bought a right forward. They've bought a striker who plays in the number 9 position. So what does that mean for Minte, for João Pedro? They've bought somebody in the left back position. What does that mean for Barco? So these are developing things. And so unfortunately, while I'd like to tell you that this is my final draft, which I'll show you today, it's, things may change. But what I'll try to do is be honest with you on where I am mentally. And the starting point, as always, if you followed my content, is always fixtures and wildcard. I have now finalized that wildcard 4, given all that I said about Oscar Bob, about other punts that I feel then they don't gel as well. Because everybody who I thought was replacing him with, like ESR, like Minte, like Rogers, they were better picks longer term. Longer term, I mean 5 weeks. Like I've only extended the wildcard window another 2 weeks. And so if I'm going back to wildcard 6, which was the original idea of the best wildcard window, because Liverpool and Newcastle have great fixtures and then they don't have great fixtures. Arsenal have bad fixtures and then they have great fixtures. Man City have okay fixtures, but then they have great fixtures. So that logic, I'm not going to repeat. You can check out the wildcard windows episode. The thesis for my wildcard 6 draft, Gameweek 1 draft, where I will be wildcarding in Gameweek 6, is basically only looking at 5 weeks. And in those 5 weeks, I'm open to a transfer after 2 or 3 weeks. And that could be a double transfer. And I'll talk about what those could be. But the thesis is Fulham, top of the ticker. They play 2 promoted teams. They have 2 home games after playing the 2 promoted teams. And even away to Man United, playable. One guy is playable. Then you have Liverpool. I think, we were saying we don't know enough about slots Liverpool. I think there's still some question marks, but I think the team hasn't changed. There's been no new signings, which means that it's not a complete unknown. So I always said Trent has to be there if you're looking at a 5-week horizon. And I've been toying with the idea that can I take a Saka up to a Salah? And what is the sacrifice that is needed to do that? So today I will show you a draft which has Trent, Salah, Haaland, Isak. And you tell me on who you think I'm sacrificing or really missing out on that justifies downgrading the Salah. Because my logic was, if you have Salah, then what about Saka and you turn your 4.5 defender into a Trent? Well, I have gone with Trent. So then let's discuss, is it worth taking a defender up to a Gabriel or not? Or is it worth taking one of my midfielders to a Gordon or another 7.5, 8 million mid or not? But if I'm going wildcard 6, I will have triple Liverpool. So Jota's in, Salah's in, and Trent is in. Newcastle, great fixtures. I think Isak is in everyone's team. I think Gordon is a great pick. And I think Lewis Hall is worth the punt because I feel if he makes it through the first couple of games and if they do, Gehi's bid has been rejected, there's a scenario in which he nails his place. And if not, I think you should have adequate bench cover so that you can go through it and you don't need to spend a transfer on a defender. And then lastly, Crystal Palace. I think Henderson becomes a clear pick if it's a 5-week window. They have 3 home games, one away to Brentford with, whether they have Tony or not, we don't know. So I think it's good enough to target. The big question mark will be Eze. And I have Eze in my team at the moment. We will see. If Eze rumors circulate tomorrow evening, then I could be tempted to downgrade him to an Nkunku or to upgrade him to a Gordon. So that's the fixtures view. And I want to also, another thing that basically led me to thinking about Salah over Saka a little bit more. So this is a Rob T graphic that is for Game Week 1 only. So these are goal projections for this week, which is coming up. So we're thinking of Saka home to Wolves with huge upside. Well, Salah has better, almost, 0.14 XG projected goals more. So this obviously doesn't take into account XA, but this tells me that this is a better fixture for Salah away to Ipswich than Saka home to Wolves. Then you consider the fact that Saka also has 3 away games coming up, which you can see here in the previous slide, which is basically Arsenal after this game play away to Villa, they play away to Tottenham, and they play away to Man City. Now, Saka is great. I mean, I'm not bringing down Saka at all. But all I'm saying is if you compare to Liverpool, so Liverpool, we've just seen, the markets think that Salah has a better goal threat this week than Arsenal home to Wolves. If you look at next week, when Saka is away to Villa, Salah is home to Brentford. I think I prefer Salah. Game 3 is the 1 week where Saka clearly is outstanding compared to Salah, where he's home to Brighton and Salah's away to Man United. Now, yes, it's Man United. He's done well in the past, but I still think Saka is well above. It's week 4 and 5 where I think there's a real advantage going Salah, which is Nottingham Forest at home compared to Saka's away to Spurs. Now, Spurs' defense isn't the best, but Nottingham Forest at home is a good fixture. And then game week 5, Bournemouth at home for Salah, away compared to Saka, who's away to Man City. So I'm going to go for it. I think it's worth taking that risk, using that 2 million, 2.5 million, and going for a Salah, which I see fewer and fewer people having. So that's going to be my difference to the Twitter template if I go with it, if I hold my nerve. And that's basically what leads me to this draft. I'll read it out for those people who are listening. I've got Henderson in goal. Like I said, Crystal Palace, good, stable team. I've got Bentley as my backup. Now, there's a lot of talk of Jose Sa leaving, so he could be a good option, well, as an emergency option if something happens to Henderson. I have Trent in defense. Now, what I've done is I've got 3 4.5 million defenders, and even Barco, I'm going to play this week. If after this week he becomes a non-option, no worries, because Hall covers me this week. I definitely think Hall starts. Barco has a good fixture. I'm happy for him to start away to Everton. And then after this week, Robinson is pretty much playable. You saw in my previous, in the fixture ticker, Fulham's fixtures are Leicester home, Ipswich away, West Ham home, Newcastle home. I can play Robinson in all of those. Then I have Konza. So if Hall can carry me for 2 weeks, I just need 2 weeks. If Hall can carry me for 2 weeks, which are the 2 good fixtures, Southampton at home and Bournemouth at home, you can see that after that, I can easily play the Villa guy, which is Konza, who's done me well in the past. Leicester away, Everton home, Wolves home. All 3 fixtures I like for Wolves. For Aston Villa, sorry. So that's the kind of rotation I have in mind. Now, if there is a scenario in which Hall becomes an upside pick, continues to play, Barco continues to keep his place, great. I have a good bench going into game week 3, 4, 5. So that's my defense. And Trent, I don't need to say much. I mean, I've always said Trent is the highest upside pick in a 5-week window. I'm sure Arsenal will keep a couple of clean sheets, 2-3 clean sheets, and more clean sheets than Liverpool even in this run. But I back Trent for attacking returns. So I hope that over 5 weeks he outscores a Gabriel clean sheet that I think is inevitable in game week 1. Coming to midfield, I have got Salah, as I mentioned. I still have Jota. So a lot of people are thinking, shall I go Jota? Can he cover Salah? Well, I'll go both. If Jota becomes a non-option after a couple of weeks, well, Jota can become somebody else. So one of the things I'm thinking about, Jota becomes an Nkunku, Isak becomes Watkins. So in game week 3 or 4, great fixtures for Watkins, and Nkunku has good fixtures as well. So that could be a possibility. It could even be that I get a Darwin if he starts starting over Diogo Jota. So I'm leaving an option to do 2 transfers in 2 or 3 weeks if Jota becomes a non-option. If he stays as a great option, amazing. I'm happy. Eze. So I have said in the midfield video, in the video yesterday, I like him over Jota. I like him over Gordon. He's 0.5 cheaper than those guys. He's on all set pieces. He's on penalties. He's the talisman. Obviously, the question mark is, will he stay at Crystal Palace? I can't answer that. I can only go by a probabilistic view by tomorrow. And if that view is that he probably stays, because look, you have to think about it. Grealish went to City. He didn't make the England squad, as he did. Phillips went to City. He didn't make the England squad, as he did. So it's not a no-brainer that he's just basically he has to go or he wants to go. There could be a case where he wants to spend another season with a new manager who's done really well. But there is also a scenario in which he leaves. And there are options. Like I talked about, there are options like Eze down to Nkunku and Isak up to Watkins. So I am willing to take that chance rather than spending a 0.5 million and getting him to Gordon. And I think he's better than Nkunku at least starting out, if he can play all these minutes. Only because of Penn's minutes and set pieces. So that's on Eze. Now it gets hairy, my midfield. I'm not the happiest, but basically why I have come here is when I'm thinking about midfielders cheaper than Saka, I'm thinking of Odegaard, I'm thinking of Bruno. Now, Bruno is a great choice. You could easily say I can go Salah down to Saka and Rodgers up to a Bruno. Can you? Yeah, 3.5, 2.5. Sort of you can make it work. You can definitely do Salah down to Saka and Rodgers up to Gordon. That's actually exact money. So I'm thinking those are my choices, and I'm thinking maybe I can take them on. Maybe I can take them on with a Rodgers in 1 week, which is West Ham away, who should start in week 1, and then Smith Rowe after that with those 4 amazing fixtures. If it doesn't work out, again, I'm open. So let's say that after 2 weeks or 3 weeks, Haaland has had his good games. I'm okay to sell Haaland down to Watkins and upgrading that 5 million position to a Foden. So if you think about it, Haaland plus Rodgers is 14 plus 5 million. That's 19 million. Foden is 10. Watkins is 9. That's also 19 million. Obviously, price changes independent. That's doable. So there are options that you can go with where you can think, okay, if I'm going to definitely wildcard in game week 6, then do I really need Haaland from game week 3 or 4? Because one of the games is Arsenal, and maybe I can get away with not having Haaland home to Brentford. So options, if somebody wanted to look at upgrading that position, or even Salah. Let's say Salah is not working out, Salah down to a Palmer, and Rodgers up to somebody else who I want. So that's the thinking. This team is not set in stone where I'm saying I will not make a transfer till game week 5. I've moved off that stubbornness. And so the idea is I start out with a strong team where I do believe that Salah has the better first 2 fixtures compared to Saka. I'm taking on Gordon, Bruno, Odegaard a little bit, and Gabriel, I would also say. And in my forward line, actually, it's a good point. Let me now go to my forward line, which is Haaland and Isak, everybody has. I'm taking on Solanke to an extent. But I do think if I look at projected fixtures, let's compare Spurs to Fulham. Spurs play Leicester away and Everton at home, which is great. But after that, Newcastle away and Arsenal home, I clearly prefer in those two fixtures Muniz, which is Ipswich away and West Ham home. So for those 2 games, I think if I stay patient with Muniz, and I think if he stays fit, then I'm happy to keep him for the long term. I say long term, 5 weeks, over Solanke. If Solanke ends up taking pens, him looking absolutely incredible, I may regret it. But that's it. We have to make choices. We have to go with our gut. And my gut says that if I'm going for a game week 6 wildcard window, I want a Liverpool triple up and a Newcastle double up or triple up. So that has led me to basically this draft that I show you here. What can change here between now and the deadline? I think the Eze spot, clearly. Eze can become an Nkunku, Eze can become a Gordon. Now, what would it take for each? I think I'd have to be comfortable with Barco as a player for him to become Gordon, because I'll have to pull another 0.5 million out, maybe out of a Konza to make him a Gordon. Don't love it. Or I could take a 0.5 out of Muniz. I can start a João Pedro, who I think is still decent. Now, he has taken a little bit of a hit, and if he was nailed and they were not signing all these players, then I would start with João Pedro anyway over Muniz. So that 0.5 can be taken out of there. But I think with that little bit of a risk, because remember, Brighton's good fixtures come after game week 3. Because look at Brighton here. Once they play Arsenal away, they've got Everton away, Man United home, Arsenal away. Again, Man United, I have to keep talking about it. At home to Man United, he probably does well. Away to Arsenal, no chance. So what you want them for is Ipswich and Nottingham Forest at home, 4 and 5. That's when the new signings start to basically come in, or you don't know. It becomes very punty. You could go with Stuart Armstrong. So Stuart Armstrong is also decent actually after game week 1. Nottingham Forest home, Brentford away, Man United home, Ipswich. But that 0.5 for Muniz just feels like, just do it, man. I mean, Muniz feels better than Armstrong because it's a little bit of an unknown how Southampton are. So that's where I am. Eze could change. Muniz could change. One of my defenders could change. Like, I could downgrade Eze to an Nkunku. I could upgrade Barco to a Dunk. That gives me a lot more surety for the longer term in terms of this team. I could find 0.5. I could do Eze down to Nkunku, Muniz down to Pedro, upgrade a Barco straight up to Munoz, sorry. So those are options that I'm working towards. But at the moment, where I'm sleeping with tonight is Salah, Rogers instead of Saka, Gordon. So whether that works out or not, we will see. But that's the hill I'm going to be dying on, at least tonight. All right. Good luck, everybody. And I'll be back next week. We'll see how we did in Game Week 1. And we'll talk about Game Week 2 and beyond plans thereafter. Good luck.